I just introduced addition and time order patterns. I'm going to talk about a few more order patterns besides time. Well, actually, first I'm going to add a few other ways that time is called, and then we'll move on to two others. There's time, which is synonymous with chronological. You could not pick between these two. They are the same thing, as is sequence, process, and steps. So all of these are the same pattern or relationship. Like I said, there would be no way that you could pick between them because they're all dealing with things happening on a timeline. And it could happen, like I had mentioned in the other, that two things happen at the same time. So you could have C happening at the same time as, let's call it C1, at the same time as C2. So it does not have to be sequential. It could be simultaneous. And let me add that. Could be simultaneous. So the order is in that the emphasis is when they happened, when the two details happened. All right, now there's time order. That's usually what it's called most of all because it's the simplest, most common word. And then here's one that's not so common, but it's called this most often, and it's spatial order. All right, time is a timeline. Spatial means space, but I don't mean like outer space. I mean like physical space. So in 3D, and I don't mean like 3D TVs. I mean like 3 dimensions like real life. All right, so that's kind of just explaining it, but there is actually another name that spatial order often gets called, and it could be location or direction. So this is when the passage is about not just, well, yeah, definitely where something is located, but also it could be describing the dimensions of something. It could be describing, and notice I said describe, so this would be if the author's purpose is description and what they're describing is how tall something is and how the dimensions are laid out, then you would have spatial order. So it would be things that mattered, things of the kind like size. I already have location and direction, and it can be orientation, and not orientation like coming to college kind of orientation, but orientation like right or left, up or down. So any of those kinds of words that deal with where things are in physical space in real life, if the whole passage is talking about that, describing something, you'd pick spatial order. And if it was a relationship between, and two sentences are being put together to talk about, you know, where do you see, what do you see when you look to the right, and then if you turn around and look to the left, what do you see? That would be spatial order between those details. And if it was a relationship within, and that one sentence told you what you would see if you looked up, that would be location or spatial order. So the emphasis on spatial order is actually doesn't even need to necessarily be more than one detail. It could be one detail that's simply giving us location. But the idea is that it's answering where something is, and of course time then is answering more of the question of when. Now there's a kind of order that really isn't used that often, but it's in our packet and it can show up, so I want to add it. Emphatic order, that's how you say that, emphatic, the PH sounds like an F. It is also called order of importance. So here's how this works. If time order deals with, obviously, time, and spatial order deals with space or where things are located, what emphatic and importance order deals with is value. By value, I mean what somebody likes or dislikes. In other words, What is most or worst? What is best? Or I guess the opposite is worst. I guess the opposite of most isn't really worst. It's least. Most, least, best, worst. What is good? What is bad? And so on and so forth. So if you get like a listing, but that listing has words that kind of take that list and tell you which parts of the list are more important than other parts. You cannot pick simple listing. You will have to pick order of importance or emphatic order.